So we're going to concentrate on the arms today. So I'm going to show you how I familiarise myself with the original fabric on there. I'm looking at this one now and I can see the piping on the top. It's all gathered around the front and then stapled quite tightly into there. That big tack in the middle is for the front stocking as well. And then on the side we can see how the fabric was fixed underneath and stapled into the frame. So I'm leaving this arm on so that I can refer back to it as I go through adding on my new fabric arms. So I've got my two pieces of fabric cut out for the arms. I've just draped them over so that I can see how they fit. I've also got a piece of piping that was left over from the first chair that I completed, and it's exactly the right length. So I'm going to use that one for my first arm, and I'm going to show you now how we will fix that onto the chair. So one of the things I learnt from doing the first chair was that I had cut my pieces a little bit too small. I'd really followed the template of the original piece of fabric, and I think because the people that made them originally knew obviously exactly what they were doing, they didn't waste any fabric at all, whereas I think I needed to make mine a bit bigger. So that's what I have done on this one. So what I'm doing here is just making it all fit in. I'm not worrying too much about wrinkles and stuff, especially here on the top, because once it's all sewn together we're going to see that we can pull it all down and get rid of all those wrinkles during the stapling process. So I'm just going to get my piece of piping, and there's a bit of a channel that's in the foam left behind. You can probably just see it there, the line left behind by the original piping, so I'm going to utilise that to put my new piping into, make sure I've got it in the right place. So I'm just going to keep putting the piping on in the right place and referring to the other arm where I've left the original fabric on. That is really helpful to me to be able to see exactly where the piping starts and where it finishes, so I know that if I've got extra to play with, or whether I've cut it too short or anything like that. But I know here I've got plenty of piping, so I'm just going to keep on making sure I've got it in the right place, and then I will move on to pinning it. So now we're ready to put some pins in. So just fold back the one hem of the piece of fabric, and then you can put your fingers underneath on the bit of the arm and the other side of the piping hem and just pin that down, and just keep going all the way down the inside arm and then round into the outside arm. I'm really happy with my choice of fabric. This is a wool look-alike fabric. It comes in 4 or 5 different colours. It is quite hard wearing. I love the pattern on it. You can't really see it too much now, but there is a slight pattern on it. It doesn't need to be matched though or anything like that, which is one of the main reasons for me choosing it. The other chair that I've already completed has been in our kitchen since September, with dogs and kids and everything else using it, and it still looks as good as the day when I finished it off, so I'm really pleased that I chose this fabric in the end. Now we've got the arm and the piping attached, we need to make this front piece, so we need to cut that out from the fabric. So I've just got my template piece which is marked as left arm, so I'm going to lay that on the floor and cut out from my roll of fabric. Now that I've got my left arm piece, I'm just going to flatten it out onto my fabric. Because it's been on the chair for quite a long time, it needed a good stretch to get it flat, so just done that, and then I'm cutting out around it, and I'm adding on about another ½ an inch for each side as a seam allowance, just to make a little bit more leeway. So now I've got my arm piece and it's the right length for this arm and down that side. So what I'm going to do is just lie it on the top, and then I'm going to fold it under And then this is what you'll see when it's all attached to the chairs. You just need to make sure it's nice and neat looking. I'm just going to make sure that it fits around there. So what I'm going to do is start to pin again onto the other seam of the piping. When I'm sewing this together, I need to make sure that I sew as close to the piping as I can, so there's no gaps or any gaping or anything like that. Might make that a little bit narrower actually, purely because then I've got a bit extra for the gathering. It doesn't need to be a massive seam. So I'm just carrying on pinning all the way around the same way that I did with the first layer underneath, and I'll just keep going until that's done. If I'd have thought about it at this stage, I would have taken out the first lot of pins and just pinned my 2 layers together and the bottom piece with one set of pins, because all I want to do when I'm sewing it is go around the whole thing in one go, which is what I did, but then I had to sit at the sewing machine and adjust all my pins before I could start doing that. So we can fold this back over. Now you can see this is what I'm on about. When I sew it, I need to make sure I sew right up to that line, so let's just push that back up there so it gives us an idea of what it's going to look like. I'm going to sew that piece first and then we can come back and do the gathering on there. I'm just going to check that there's enough there to gather it. Might be a bit tight there. Where's my stocking? Let's put that on and just see. Should be fine. Right. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to sew this piece round now and then we can attach it to the chair. What I'm going to do is get my piping foot on. I spoke about the piping foot in my tools video, and this is a double channel piping foot. It makes it really easy to sew anything that's got piping on it, and it fits onto the machine really easily. All we have to do is pop it under there and we push that in, and now it's on the actual machine. So now I've got this is the piping, and then that's the channel on the foot. So we just put the foot down on top of the piping, and then it's going to sew along this line, and we can guide it with our hands to make sure that it sews really closely to the edge of the pipe. Okay, here we go. I'm just going to sew quite slowly. I have to keep stopping so that I can remove the pins. I don't want to break my needle. So I'm just keeping the piping in the channel and pulling it through with my left hand and holding it steady with my right. And then off we go again, and then I'll just take off that pin. And really this is now sewing, I think, 4 layers of fabric, so it's quite thick for it to do. And this is just a normal domestic sewing machine. It doesn't have a special needle, so it's doing well to get through that thickness of fabric. It's come out quite nice. And that's exactly what we wanted, was a really nice tight stitch next to the actual piping, so that's come out really well. I'm really pleased with how that's come out. Go and see if we can fit it onto the chair. So I'm back upstairs where the chair is, and I'm just going to start to replace the arm piece now. I want to get the piping back into the original channel following the line in the foam, and I'm going to tuck everything in as tightly as I can without stapling it or permanently fixing it just yet. I've also added a length of piping at the back by the wing because the original piece of fabric had this. I didn't do this on the first chair that I've done, so I'm giving it a go on this one, and I'm quite pleased with how it's turned out, but I'll show you more of that when we add the wings later on. When I'm checking that everything fits, I'm not worrying too much about wrinkles in the fabric or anything like that, because when you come to staple, that's when you'll get rid of all your wrinkles and things, because you'll push down like I am here, and underneath this piece of fabric that I'm with now is going to staple to a piece of the framework, and that's when we'll get rid of anything that we need to. My main aim at this stage now is just to get the piping in that channel on the foam and get it all in the right position, and then once I've got all that in place, I'll be able to start thinking about stapling everything into place and giving it a good tight tug to get it all right. I'm just going to carry on adjusting everything now, making sure that it's all in the right position, and then I can pull it down from underneath so that I've got enough fabric to staple in when I need to. The next piece of the chair that we need to look at is the fronts of the arms, and I refer to these as the stockings in my videos because they remind me of Christmas stockings. So these go on the front of the arms and they tack in to the wooden frame of the chair on the arm with a big nail that is attached on the back here with a piece of webbing. As you can see, they're pretty sizable nails. This is the only one that is still in situ on these pieces because there's one still attached to the chair that I can't get out because I need a big pair of pliers to do it, and the other two, sorry, I'm not sure what I did with them. So I needed to replace these, and I bought some nails on eBay. Bit smaller than I anticipated them to be. I did measure them, but I thought that they'd be okay. I think they still will be okay because it only needs to tack into the wooden frame of the arm. So I'm hoping that if we can get it through a piece of webbing the same, I'm hoping to salvage this piece of webbing. We can get it into a piece of webbing and put it on. It should be okay. We'll see. But I didn't want to spend loads of money because I only needed 4 of these, and the smallest quantity I could buy was 30 grams, and this is apparently 30 grams of furniture tacks, but who knows, I might use them again in another project, so we shall see. So the next job is to remove all this old fabric off here and then cut out new pieces and recover. So that's the next thing to do. So long story short, I couldn't get the staple remover underneath the staples on here because they're really well fitted into the fabric and the wood. So I just got my big pliers and just really pulled all of the fabric off. It's not an ideal way of doing it, but in this situation it was the only way. You can see also that I ruined the webbing, so I haven't been able to salvage that unfortunately, but I will show you another method that I'm going to use to attach the tacks a bit later on. Once I got to the stage of removing the old fabric from the wood stocking, I found that the back of it was quite sticky and it had stuck quite well to this foam. I don't know if it was actually stuck on deliberately or whether it was just something that's happened over time with wear of the chair, so I just had to be really careful when I peeled that off. You can see it looks a bit rubbery there, so I just peeled it off because I didn't want to damage the foam because I want to make sure I can reuse that. So that's one done, and move on to the next one now. Make sure you get rid of any of the staples that are sticking up like that because they'll really hurt you if you accidentally put your fingers on them. Just going to get all these staples out now. Nice and easy. lovely. Okay, so this is a piece of fabric that has been left over when I've been cutting out other pieces. So I'm just going to cut that piece off, and I think it's going to be perfect for this. So I'm going to cut that off there. Let's see if it will fit. So turn it over. Might be a bit tight around here, but I think we can make that work. If we start off in that section. Yeah, so I'm just I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Right, so I've got my staple gun, and the first thing I'm going to do is just put one staple in the top there, just to hold it. And then I'm going to put another one in at the bottom as well to hold it there. And now I've just got to work around putting it all together. So all you do is just keep on folding it over and getting it in the right place, and then staple that. When you're going around the bendy part, just put in a couple of little tiny relief cuts, and that will help you. So now we've got the fabric covering the, what I keep calling stocking, the front of the chair. I'm going to attach two tacks, one at the top and one at the bottom. So I'm just going to cut a couple of bits of my fabric, just two little squares. I'm going to put a tack through them, and then I'm going to staple those onto the wood again. I was hoping to save the webbing from the original covering of the chair, but unfortunately, because I couldn't get the staples out, I couldn't reuse it. So I'm hoping this will work. I just need to try and get as close to those tacks as I can without actually stapling onto the tacks. So I'll just do exactly the same thing again now, little square of fabric with the tack through the middle, and then I'll just staple it onto the wood, and then I will carry on and recover the other piece for the other arm, so I've got that ready for when that one is ready to be put on as well. I don't want to make these videos too long, so this is all I'm going to show you today. Join me in the next one where I'll attach the fabric to the chair, and hopefully we'll have a functional arm piece ready to look at. I hope you're finding this series useful. If you are, please drop me a like or a comment, ask any questions below, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!